Hello, I'm Rojo, and today I want to look at every single one of TSM Treatz Black Shields. In previous commentary I made, I think I mischaracterized his play. I think he played well overall, but I think that his philosophy and his decision making behind the use of the Black Shield uh, may have been flawed. Not necessarily wrong, but just uh, I may disagree with it. As a matter of fact, I haven't really made a decision on any individual one of these black shields, or at least I don't want to make a decision until I see them during this, as I'm doing this. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna see every single one, including the ones in lane, which aren't necessarily as relevant. There was a bit of controversy about that on different commentaries. So I'm gonna, not for me personally, but um, I want to investigate whether or not these things were right and the decision-making philosophies behind them. So let's start. I should have every single one of them time-stamped. So we're just gonna go through normal speed. I have a little bit of space given for each one. So as you can see, nothing's actually happening. There's no black shield being done. He is standing very far back, but that is not the commentary I'm trying to make. There is a black shield. Perfectly fine black shield. It was just blocking damage. Next. I think it's a little too far. Over here. Okay. Clever's here. You'll see extra damage is going to be placed onto them, and a black shield will come out at some point.
They're not going to go for it. They don't know exactly where the set is, and haven't quite got double if or Treatz low enough to signal a dive.
See, I believe. Wait for it. Wait for it. There. Fine. He doesn't actually block anything super significant. Slow is, I guess you could argue, significant, but not necessarily that big of a deal. So again, I just wanted to be thorough. I'm not really critiquing his laning phase. And then here, go back a little bit. And during this exchange, he prevents the Karma W from rooting double lift, and of course blocking Q damage. So again, fine. As far as I'm aware, up until 15 minutes, Treatz did not use the black shield at any time during the broadcast, or that was on screen for the broadcast, so I'm not going to continue. Go through the laning phase. Right here is actually Black Shield is placed onto Bjergsen as he Destiny Gates. Yeah, he Destiny Gates over to kill Kennen. That's perfectly fine. Makes sense because Kennen is able to stun, as well as it provides a bit of shielding against Kennen. So for this play, makes perfect sense. Also gives him an assist, so perfectly fine. We'll just watch it happen. Perfectly fine. Now we're going to get into the actually engaging territory. His misses. So we're going to look. This fight is favorable for TSM because of the composition, because of the fact that Kennen is extremely far behind. He's fairly weak. Doesn't really want to actually fight, but Cloud9 in fact make decisions that show that they are leaving the fight, and then Kennen still walks in anyway. So reality is that the fight was really in TSM's favor anyway. You see the exit, and I really want to highlight something here. I'm not sure the level of communication that Broken Blade has. That he can communicate, I have a 4-man stun on all of Cloud9, except for Licorice, who was coming in. If we assume that that is known, then holding the black shield and not using it on the target as they're getting hit is perfectly fine. Especially when you consider that Cloud9 shouldn't even want to go for this fight anyway. So even if they hit the arrow, which by the way, that is an important thing to note. Cloud9 doesn't actually want this fight. And in fact, every second that ticks, TSM are made stronger because of it. The only thing that they might be scared of is Azir being able to do very powerful things in the late game, but the scaling is on TSM. Caitlyn is extremely strong. No one's going to be able to walk into her because they will be chunked significantly by pretty much everyone except Blabber, or everyone except Blabber will be chunked significantly. Twisted Fate is difficult to walk into. Morgana is difficult to walk into. There's just so many problems. I mean, even the Aurelia ultimate causes problems for coming into them, and the majority of Cloud9's initiation is on these two, as well as the Enchanted Crystal arrow. So you have the arrow, which if you black shielded here, Cloud9 do not go for this, almost certainly. If you hold the black shield and you assess the situation that, okay, they've been stunned, perfectly fine. It's possible that they're not stunned. They're walking, they're walking, they're walking. Doubleth is even in greater danger. And actually, if we look at how Kennen moves, Kennen beeline it. Does he hesitate at all? He does hesitate a little bit, but not after the Aurelia stun. So it seems as though Cloud9 would be like maybe here. They Niski might have been in range to Shurima shuffle, which would have actually been even more dangerous. By just a split second, he'd be a little faster. Maybe even more because the stun is fairly long. Shurima shuffles away Broken Blade, or attempts to. Broken Blade actually jumps to a target that is farther away. He doesn't even get hit with the shuffle, or with the Emperor's Divide. Rather, not the shuffle. The black shield onto Broken Blade actually doesn't save too much. I can actually see here the Sand Soldiers. So the target is actually Treatz. This is the only target that's actually hitting for any significant damage. This is only preventing slows. Blade wants those kills, gets one. Looks for number two. Niski's very, very low. Licorice on the way out, and they're going to pick up a couple of kills still. Flash away, but still rooted in place. TSM wiping the floor with Cloud. So on, and then there's a black shield here too. I think at some point. Yeah, that's fine, whatever. So the reason why I think this is okay to argue, as Treatz did argue that he was holding it for specific threats or for an actual threat to his team, I think that's actually a perfectly fine case for that here. Because after Blabber ults out, there's no actual ability for them to come into you, except for Azir doing some extreme and very risky play. You know that Licorice isn't very strong, so even if he does do this, you can exhaust him. So I think that generally speaking, it's fine. And that the use of the Black Shield onto Broken Blade is acceptable. So here, I give it it's fine. Fine. Philosophically, it's fine because he's holding for a specific threat. But it's really important to notice that Cloud9 shouldn't even want to go in after. So in reality, what he's doing is he's baiting Cloud9 to do something that they shouldn't even want to do anyway. So he holds the black shield, and Cloud9 could have just walked away. So if he just hits the black shield onto the enchanted crystal arrow, Cloud9 say, well, there's nothing we can do, and they just back out. Which is inviting risk, but if you assume that you're going to win these fights anyway, then maybe. But I would question how confidently you can say, we know for a fact we can win these fights with absolute certainty. It's different from, okay, we can win this, we win these kinds of confidence, to actually knowing confidently that these fights are very favorable for you. It's probably pretty easy to see that the fight is favorable, but Cloud9 shouldn't even want to do this anyway, and you're actually inviting a risk by potentially allowing something to happen. And by the way, my assessment is also contingent on Broken Blade's stun being factored into the Black Shield usage. Assuming that that is seen with enough time that he can tell, all right, they're going to get stunned, I don't need a Black Shield, perfectly fine. I don't know if that's a very, very, very tough call to make, whether that was actually what he assessed. But if that's what he assessed, sure. Perfectly fine. Holding it is good. Any other case, if Broken Blade doesn't get that good of a stun off, it is very possible that this fight goes sour for TSM. So he is actually using Caitlyn as bait when Caitlyn shouldn't be the bait. Okay. Here is interesting because TSM are all gathering for mid tier 1, which fine team play. Treatz is actually over here. He is putting on a ward onto the opposite side of the Baron pit, which I have no idea how that's useful to them. I guess it would allow them to see Iski coming down, but he can also just teleport into the play. And also generally would be able to determine that he's not where he would be after he clears the wave here, assuming that Cloud9 are aggressing onto you, which is the only occasion why he would leave. He'd only leave because there's a play being had for Cloud9. So Treatz doesn't actually need to put this ward down necessarily. It's not bad, just wanted to make mention of it because it is relevant to the Black Shield that he puts on in a second. Or not in a second, but shortly. As you can see, Treatz is over here, and eventually the Enchanted Crystal Arrow hits Broken Blade sitting here. So he is very far away from the play because of his want for vision. So here, Enchanted Crystal Arrow is not triggered, or is hit, but the Black Shield is not triggered. He ends up using the Black Shield onto Blabber, or on Blabber's attempt to Q Broken Blade, which does prevent the fight from going forward, and then they actually get a ward. Now, importantly, this is a bit risky for no reason. In general, the play in general is pretty risky because it does allow this to happen. And in an occasion where Cloud9 are actually even, or the Pennon is actually doing well, this ends up being really, really bad for TSM. You could argue that they wouldn't do this play if that was the case. I just wanted to make mention of that. Also, the Black Shield could have maybe been used to bait further because the targets that were over here are Vulcan and Sven, which cannot necessarily lock someone down, but it's perfectly fine. There's nothing really too bad about it. He didn't miss it in this case. He just was too far away from it. So there's nothing. He was just holding it. He actually did use it on a CC immediately to block it, so perfectly fine. So far, nothing is super strange about Treatz' play, and there's nothing that really would make someone say, all right, he's playing poorly. He's playing just fine. It is important to realize, of course, that the Black Shield is critical to the way that TSM play these fights, and is also critical to why Cloud9 are not necessarily able to aggress onto them. If they have any other support, like if you trade Karma over there, then it becomes a little harder to make that case. Then it becomes easier for Cloud9 to be able to aggress onto them. So holding the Black Shield is actually important for the things that actually matter.
Actually, because they even used the one from a very
Going to go to the next thing, which is Dragon. Okay.
You can see it's Cloud help you problematic because you're doing great these plays much more often than you're going to have the answer yourself. This game, 5 seconds now till third.
Couple things to note: they are still in the lead. Just didn't circle the right thing. They are in the lead. About 2.6K.
Ocean Drake or third Drake, which is Ocean, comes up. Third for TSM.
Okay, Caitlyn line. Sure.
Sam, I should really say, because here it is. The fight could begin, and TSM have been showing they have control. Trapline comes down. That's going to be real annoying to deal with on the Cloud9 side. Bit of poke out from the Azir. Traps come right back down. Damage towards. Here it is.
Just to make sure Black Shield wasn't put out.
Trapline comes down. That's going to be real annoying to deal with on the Cloud9 side. Bit of poke out from the Azir. Traps come right back down. Damage towards Blabber. That hurts a whole lot.
No.
It's going to be another.
Right here. Doublelift is hit by a enchanted crystal arrow. This is relevant because, in fact, Cloud9 are close enough to go in on this target. So the arrow could be blocked, and it would actually block a bit of damage as well if you time it to block the arrow. Now, it ends up being used onto Doublelift after Blabber comes in, using his ultimate. Preventing him from being CC'd. I believe he also gets hit with. Kind of difficult to see all of the. He may have gotten hit with a.
Damage towards Blabber. That hurts a whole lot. It's going to be another smite fight. This time is picked up by Blabber, and there's the engage.
Yeah, he was hit with some by an auto or by Sand Soldier. By Niski. Okay, and then Niski has to use a defensive ultimate because Spica pushed the Volibear back in. I genuinely think that the Black Shield on Doublelift is actually not super relevant. If you're already willing to let him get hit with the arrow, you should be using the arrow on. You should be using the Black Shield on either Spica or Broken Blade at that point, because they're the ones that are going to be going in and actually having threat put onto them. If it is just used again, this is again another case where if the Black Shield is used on the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, C9 just don't go in. They have no strategy to go in. So here, if he gets Black Shielded, the fight's over. And so he's actually, again, he's inviting risk through the decision that he's letting the shield the arrow hit because it's not necessarily going to cause a death, and you can bait the fight. But in much the same way that Treatz asked, how did Licorice and Blabber feel about those Black Shields? You have to wonder, how does Doublelift feel about the Black Shields? And if he just gets a Black Shield here, he just walks away just fine. And they can reposition, and there's still no way that, and Blabber can come in, and it won't matter, because he'll just get pushed out anyway. So, either way, it's not egregious. Treatz' Black Shield is not egregious here. I still think it probably should have been on Speak or Broken Blade, because that's after a certain point, you either argue that double lift isn't actually that important, and that he can be hit with these, and then his damage during those moments isn't relevant. So if he actually has the black shield on, he can reposition and he can potentially auto a target, which would do more damage than anyone else could.
Gonna be another snipe fight. This time is picked up by Blabber, and there's the engage. Is this what C9 needed? Oh, it is not. The dunk comes in. Good luck surviving.
So we're actually inviting risk by doing this, because if Cloud9 somehow miraculously make a play, that would be caused by the arrow hitting than anything else. It's not egregious, and characterizing it as wrong or that he's missing the black shields, I think is incorrect. Even if you're seriously analyzing it and you're saying, okay, he's missing it, I think that's incorrect. If you're just making a joke that he's missing them and forcing Cloud9 into baits, then I guess it's fine. But in terms of serious analysis, it's not correct. I would argue that there is a philosophical difference in the way that I would think about it versus how Treatz was going about it, because he was using it as a bait / holding it so that there was so he could use it on a relevant CC. But the reality is that he still used it on double lift anyway. Whereas if he just uses it initially here, double lift doesn't get hit with. This doesn't matter because he won't be in range. This wouldn't matter because he'd be over here or somewhere else, and then you could black shield, and then you wouldn't be able to black shield anyone else. But also arguably, the Polar Bear could have targeted Spica when you black shielded him on the entrance, and then Spica would have had a worse time trying to get in because he would have been delayed on his ultimate. You may be able to buffer it, so maybe not necessarily. Even still, this black shield looks late. So I can understand why people would say what they were saying, but fair enough. Fair enough to Treatz. It's a philosophical difference at this point. So go on to here.
There's not a lot of threat. As long as Spica stands in front of him, you can't get actual.
This is one where even Treatz said that I definitely missed this black shield. Or I should have used the black shield. I think again he is making the conscious decision to not hit it. So I'm going to give him the credit where if he wanted to actually use the black shield on Caitlyn at this point, he would have. He just assessed it incorrectly. He didn't think that that double lift would take that much damage, even though he was frontlining the tower and Sven was walking up to him. So his assessment was wrong of the situation, not his mechanics. But I still think that the assessment is incorrect across all of them because he's still using Caitlyn as bait in all cases. So here the black shield eventually comes in, but it actually doesn't help at all.
But now he gets hit by that arrow.
Black shield a little bit late. Damage and double lift. Blabber could go in. Has the ulti waiting at the black shield's gonna fire.
Because then the black shield is used, and then the black shield is used, and then there's no CC to follow up onto it. So even in this case, of course, as Treatz said, he feels as though this was incorrectly done. So fair enough. But I think that the logic is still going through the decision making of using the black shield later on the more immediate problems, the bigger threats, is a fair assessment and a fair decision to make. But you have to look at it critically. You have to be willing to say, okay, if I'd use a black shield, are we even going to be in danger anyway? So where someone might say, oh, he was holding on to it, and this is why they were able to win fights. Well, the question is, do they even get into a fight if he's not holding on to it? If he black shields the target that gets hit by the primary long range CC, does the fight even happen? And I honestly argue, no, it probably doesn't happen. Which means that you're actually, by inviting the fight, by creating a situation where you fight, you're inviting risk, which is unnecessary in a composition that scales better than this one, except for, I guess you could argue, Azir, but again, he'd have to do something miraculous, especially with the game state.
Some slows. Is it going to be enough damage? Not nearly enough. Blabber just gets shut down. 3 Adam Caitlyn has a lot of DPS. 17 stacks.
Then we go to the last fight.
Picked up yet again. No problem at all.
It's
Killed, but
Oh, too far.
4 major damage items.
So, and for the record, and this is really important, Caitlyn should not feel the need to buy a QSS. This is a waste of gold in a team with a Morgana. I don't know if it's not a team-based decision to use the Black Shield later, then I can see why Doublelift feels the need to buy the QSS. But he shouldn't have to feel that need. He should feel like, I'm just going to get Black Shielded. I'm not going to get hit with a long-range CC, and we'll just walk out of the fight. Or we'll walk out of the situation having gotten the objective or not gotten the objective. And we'll be fine. Because as the game ticks on, this team fight is this is stronger than this one because of their ability to push out and defend. I mean, how do you walk into these 3? And then these 3 can also aggress onto, these 2 can aggress onto the carries of Cloud9, as well as respond to Licorice and Blabber.
It's not an option to kill. He's just going to kill you, so I guess it sucks to be Cloud9
So
right now.
here,
They're about to drop to 11-5, their first 0-2 week of the year.
he uses a Black Shield, probably actually to make up for the fact that the Black Shield, he missed the Black Shield on the top side. So it's possible that he, on this play, he actually readjusted his thinking like, okay, Doublelift is actually really far forward. If he gets hit with this arrow, it's going to be really, really bad. Issue is, of course, that Doublelift already had a QSS. So if Doublelift has a QSS, and you're already using that thinking anyway, I think you can let him get hit with the arrow. Or you don't necessarily need to Black Shield the arrow. And you can let him kite back and then hold the Black Shield. Now the Black Shield here doesn't actually block anything. It eventually comes back up during the fight, and he actually uses it again. And here we actually see the previous use that we saw in the first dragon fight, as well as in the fight, as well as in that second dragon fight that I thought was again the better use. So not even necessarily using it on Doublelift. Doublelift is dead at this point. But using it on Broken Blade, he can actually aggress onto the squishier targets of Cloud9 and do his work. So philosophically, or decision-making wise, I guess that's I think that the idea behind the Black Shield is okay from Treatz, but it honestly invites extra risk that you don't need to have. You can be willing to get hit with the Black Shield, and you can be willing to hold the Black Shield, but I think that in all of those cases where the Black Shield was late, or people would claim that it was late, you could have just used the Black Shield and then gotten out, and then there would be no fight, which you could argue is bad. Because if you're very, very, very confident that you're going to win all of these fights, sure. Because I mean, I am able to assess the fact that this is a very hard trio to walk into. A lot of their initiation is walking into you or using a long range stun, which if it's long range enough, it won't. These aren't helped by the CC, so there is that. But the game could just go on, and you shouldn't need an 8K gold lead to win game. Basically, you should be able to win the game off of a neutral state with the composition that you have. Ivan Rojo. Treatz didn't play poorly, just made a conscientious, he made a conscious decision. I think that I disagree with the decision, but it's not that big of a deal. I only wanted to make a video about it because previously I think I characterized it incorrectly. I didn't want that to stand. So, Ivan Rojo, thanks.